5, hundreds of thousands of protesters and people have hit the streets here at home and around the nation. Within the last hour, law enforcement stepping up action, moving into crowds after bottles and rocks were thrown at them. We want to thank you for joining us here at 5. I'm Jonathan Gonzalez.
And I'm Kathy Varr. We're going to keep you up to date right here. There are dispersal orders in place for Alameda, south of Aliso and north of Temple right now, and another dispersal order for Los Angeles Street between Aliso and Temple. NBC4's Brian Andrews live in News Chopper 4. Brian, what are you seeing? This was a huge crowd, mostly peaceful today, an estimated 30,000 people gathering. What's happening now?
Hey, Kathy, we're at North Main Street and East Temple Street right now, and what we've been seeing just moments ago, you just saw that gas get deployed. The crowds have been running backwards every so often. That's probably due to pepper balls being fired, but there are, looks like sheriff's units here, and just past the street, it's hard to see, there's actually mounted units right here with LA County Sheriff. So there's been a little bit of throwing things back and forth between this crowd and law enforcement, so it's getting a little bit unruly here. But it's not a very big group. Most of the people are in other spots, so this seems to be a little bit of a isolated event. But they're getting a little bit unruly right now. They have shot tear gas and I think some pepper balls at the crowds.
This is certainly, Brian, a fraction of the more than 30,000 people who were peacefully protesting today. But it's enough of this, just enough to, force the local law enforcement, the LAPD and others to issue that dispersal order asking all protesters to leave downtown Los Angeles immediately or face arrest, as we see a bunch of them now scurrying back, someone clearly throwing stuff at officers. And we've heard many flashbangs. As we stay with your shot here, I wonder if we can get to our Brittany Hope, because she's been following this for the better part of an hour. It was an hour ago when those dispersal orders were given. Brittany, we're taking a closer look. We know you're several blocks away from this, but again, it's a fraction of the people we saw out there today, but it's enough people causing enough chaos, making everyone being forced to disperse.
Hey, certainly. And, we were talking, my photographer JR and I were talking, and we said, everything had been going so smoothly, and we said it's just going to take one moment if this is going to flip. And flip, it certainly did. I just was able to get a face mask because whatever is being dispersed into the air in that smoke, it seems that there's some sort of pepper in it, and we are being hit by that, and you can feel it, so I'm grateful for this mask. Here at Aliso in Los Angeles, it has very much quieted down. This is that first point where officers started pushing protesters back, but now the protesters are really splintered into different groups. So just behind me here, and I want you to see kind of this overpass. This is Main and Arcadia, and that is another spot where we have officers blocking people, not allowing them to go onto the overpass here. But you can see, and this is really what we've been seeing over the past hour and a half. It's law enforcement facing those protesters and stopping them from getting there. So this is really the biggest kind of group of people that we're able to see. But if we pan to the next overpass, it looks like we're having that same situation over there, although law enforcement hasn't gotten those protesters off of that overpass over there. So it seems that because of these dispersal orders and because you have different groups, you have police, you have the sheriff's office splitting these protesters, pushing them away. Instead of one unified group spanning blocks, it seems that certainly we're having little different chunks of people in the city. Now, we can tell you with our own eyes here between my photographer and I, we have seen 3 people be detained solely at the intersection of Aliso and Los Angeles. 3 people. I was on the phone with a city official and I asked, what was that moment where the dispersal orders happened? Because as far as we could tell here, everything was smooth. Yes, there were people in the streets, but certainly it had stayed peaceful. And she said that at that point there were rocks and bottles being thrown. So that is when they had those dispersal orders at 4:04. That is the moment when officers started pushing the crowd back. And we can tell you that that's when kind of the tone of this day certainly flipped. And that is when we saw tear gas, we saw smokes, we're hearing flashbangs, we're feeling that pepper spray. That's when we started seeing bottles getting thrown. So certainly in the past hour, it's a very different situation than what we've seen since 9 o'clock this morning.
Right, Brittany Hope reporting for us live downtown. Thank you very much, Mayor. All right, let's go to Lolita Lopez. She is also down there in the streets, and she was watching as things were a little bit chaotic. We could see people starting to want to leave, people with children, cars driving through there. And Lolita, you said that was happening all day, but right now it sort of changed. The atmosphere changed, you said.
Right, and what I meant by that was, like, this was part of the march. It was a peaceful demonstration just this way. We're going to show you where all of that was. Right there you see City Hall, there on Spring Street, peaceful demonstration, marchers all around. Thousands of people here just going down and through the streets. The streets were open. They were allowing people to kind of come in and out as they please. And then all of a sudden, within like the hour that you've been talking about, things have changed. But over the last 8 hours that we have been here, this is the one moment that's become chaotic, because for most of the day it has been peaceful and put together. We did just see someone come up this way from Temple holding his ear. He was bleeding. It is unclear what it is that necessarily created that moment there. And now what we are seeing over the last 10 minutes that we've been talking to you from earlier today was people moving up from Los Angeles streets and up. It's technically west, but it's going away from the downtown area up Temple Street and leaving this area here. And presumably it is the police department taking folks away from the area that has often been sort of that middle ground and that conglomerate there of where a lot of activity that becomes more destructive that we have seen over the last few days has happened. That is at Los Angeles Street there in Maine. There have been like puffs of smoke that have come out, unclear exactly what it is. Folks have then been coming up Temple Street and away from that area, and that is where we believe that a lot of folks are being moved from. So again, now people are again chanting their ICE out of LA is what they're saying now, part of their demonstration here. Again, we're seeing a group of different people. There are still young children here. There are still families here. There are a lot of just regular folks handing out water, handing out food. There are people with first aid kits trying to help people now, like the gentleman that I told you that I just saw a couple of minutes ago walk up this street holding his ear. He looked and appeared to be bleeding. It is unclear exactly what caused that. But as we look behind me again, and as you hear behind me, things are going and going up in the air there as you see some smoke. Unclear right now what it is that is going on there, but this is sort of the activity that's here. And like I said, if you categorize things in terms of feelings, it went from calm, peaceful, familiar, community to this at this point. Things that, like across the city, we've been getting reports from different city officials from Pasadena and Glendale saying that their peaceful protests have now dispersed peacefully. This is what they want. This is what Mayor Bass asked for, to be peaceful, to leave. You can protest. If you protest peacefully, we will let you stay here, right? We won't interfere in any way. But at some point, the LA Central put out a notice that said there is an order for dispersal, saying that folks are, and I just wanted to let you know we're getting an emergency alert as we speak right now that the Los Angeles Street, Temple Street, that is 1 block away there that you see from where we're standing, is now being declared an unlawful assembly. Just got that emergency alert right now as we were speaking. So this is escalating to that point where we want, the city now wants folks to really get out and move out of this area, seeing that it has gotten to a point where they do not feel comfortable. They do no longer believe that it is as peaceful as it was before. And by the way, folks, we're still 3 hours away from a curfew that's now being in place for several days. So in and around this area, people are going to have to disperse if they do not want to get taken in by the police department. A curfew, again, in place for 1 square mile of LA City, which includes where we are at this point. But as you can see, people are kind of moving around here. Everyone was getting that alert as we were talking about it there on camera just a couple of minutes ago. So seemingly it seems that there's going to be a movement in some way to either get out of here 3 hours away from that curfew taking effect once again tonight.
It is incredible to watch these two images, Lolita. On the left side of our screen for our viewers, that is one side of City Hall where it is loud but mostly peaceful, where Lolita's standing, and quite the contrast, literally 1 city block away, the east side of City Hall. That image there on your right from our News Chopper 4 of protesters going at it with officers launching projectiles back and forth at each other. Let's go back up to Brian Andrews now in News Chopper 4. And Brian, it's incredible to see how different these two scenes are playing out just 1 block from each other. But tell us what you've been seeing over the last several minutes, because police can't seem to get this few people here on the ground, but they keep anything that officers throw at them, they're throwing it right back.
Yeah, so this is Temple in Maine, where she was just talking about being declared an unlawful assembly, and we've watched a lot of tear gas get tossed at the protesters, and then they simply kick it back a lot of the times. So it's not; those don't seem to be that effective. But a lot of flashbangs, a lot of smoke, a lot of gas has been launched at these protesters. They're creating some makeshift barriers here. They've got umbrellas, and some of them have shields that they're beginning to set up. They don't seem like they want to leave. They seem like they want to stay here. They want to keep fighting, and that's what it seems like they're going to do. They're going to stay here until the police absolutely force them out.
The authorities there to the left, I saw the mounted unit, I see police vehicles there. So at this point, they are just ready to move in. I just wonder at what point they will start pushing them forward, because we've seen them do it and it happens quite quickly, but it doesn't look right now like they're ready to move in just yet. Although they have been throwing some of those flashbangs, some of the tear gas into that crowd there. And we've seen the crowd move a little bit, but then they come right back.
Yeah, the crowd seems pretty happy to stay here. Anything that gets launched into the crowd simply gets either picked up and tossed back or kicked back. So it's not being terribly effective. They are standing their ground. They'll run back for a little bit, but then they'll come right back and take that intersection over again. But like you said, those officers, when they decide, you know what, enough is enough, they will move quick and they will move fast and they will move effectively. So hopefully we'll be here to catch that.
And these are the moments that the mayor, the governor, and other local and state leaders have been talking about. The violence that erupts at the end of these protests, clashes between protesters and law enforcement, that's what leads to these dispersal orders. And now what Lolita was reporting, officially an unlawful assembly, meaning everyone there in Brian's image is subject to arrest. And again, this is just one city block away, one city hall away from where Lolita is standing. So right now we want to go back out to our Brittany Hope. She's about 3 to 4 blocks away from this, over by the 101 freeway, where, Brittany, we saw a lot of the protesters near you. They seem to remain peaceful there, gathering around the 101 freeway. But what we're seeing just a few blocks from you is a very different scene. It's a minority of people for sure, but it's a very, very different scene.
Certainly what we're seeing here at this point, what we're seeing across from us at Arcadia and Main, very peaceful. And this is kind of what we've been seeing all day, people, you know, holding flags over the 101, getting support from people below. You know, I want to show you this. So my photographer JR just found these. These are pepper balls. So this is what law enforcement uses to disperse crowds at some point. I can tell you these were definitely used today because A, we saw the smoke in the air, but B, both of us felt it, which is why we have masks on. There was definitely some sort of pepper substance that was released here at this intersection when they broke up the crowd here an hour ago. But because of the wind, a lot of what's being done 3-4 blocks from us is also kind of coming this way. But this is just an example of what is being thrown out. I do want to show you, though, yes, still very peaceful here. Certainly law enforcement is stopping this crowd on Main from getting onto Main, from getting onto the overpass, because once they cross the overpass, that's when they can get towards City Hall again. But at this point, it's people, you know, kind of standing there. We haven't seen any sort of flashbangs come from this area. We haven't seen any sort of clashes between law enforcement and protesters in this area. Oh, you know what? I just got an emergency alert on my phone. I want to see what this is. Oh, you know what? Well, what it's saying is that this area that we are at, Temple in Los Angeles, we're just 1 block north of that, has now been declared an unlawful assembly area. You can hear those flashbangs that are going off. I believe that's 3 to 4 blocks away from us. But because of the acoustics in downtown LA, we can hear them very well. It looks like there's people. JR, can you pan all the way to 2 overpasses from us? Suddenly there's smoke coming